Hi guys.
Hello.
So today we are going to be talking about the our manga club, the monthly manga club. And before going into what it is about, let's introduce our other co-hosts. Steph.
Sure. Hi guys, my name's Steph from the channel Coffee Over Apples. I read obviously lots of manga and books, but I love horror and sci-fi and thrillers and fantasy, and I draw a bookmark when I love a book, and I rant while cooking when I hate a book, and there's lots of that already scheduled to come out soon, so please enjoy, and I'll pass it over to Rachel.
Hello, I am Rachel. I have the channel called Let Me in the Library. I do kind of like your typical sort of booktube stuff, TBRs or the TBR video, and occasional wrap-ups, a lot of vlogs, and I'm just excited because we always do our monthly book club. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it last time, but I know we have some very hot takes today, so I'm very excited to see what everybody thinks of all of these picks. But it was Preet who picked out these books. So Preet, do you want to kind of explain what the premise is of these?
Yes.
And what we're doing here?
So our monthly manga book club chooses 3 volumes of popular mangas and 1 volume of like non-popular one. And so the first like 3 volumes of the popular one was Food Wars. The premise is about a guy whose family is running a local Japanese food restaurant. Restaurant, and he wants to overcome his father, and he wants to own the shop, like success. So his father actually enrolls him into this food kind of school, a very popular school, and there he has to face a lot of challenges, and he does a lot of things to improve his skills for cooking. And then for the 1 volume was Alice in the Country of Hearts. It's just kind of a retelling of Alice in the Wonderland, and that's the basic premise of it, and it's kind of a retelling but a bit different of it. So yeah, so how did you guys enjoy it?
Well, should we talk about all of them, or just Alice, or just Food Wars?
First, let's go with Alice in the Wonderland, and Alice in the Country. What do you guys want to do?
Did we want to mention that there's 2 other hosts for the club who weren't able to make it today?
Sorry.
Also,
yes.
Yeah.
So the 2 other hosts were Nana from Lit Nana, and she told me she couldn't join because of some issues. And other is Kitty, and she also couldn't join. I hope she could join if she responds, and yeah, let's hope she joins.
So we usually start with I think you said the single pick, right?
Yeah, Alice in the Country of Hearts.
So I thought we had to read 2 volumes of it, because I think that's what we talked about at the beginning. And then
actually, I thought we could, but I got super busy, so I couldn't read. I'm so sorry. Like I couldn't.
Oh, I didn't even know we were supposed to. I completely forgot we were going to read 2.
Oh, well, I just have extra knowledge about what happens in the story then, but it's fine. I ended up giving both volumes like 2 stars because I kind of felt like it was very harem-y, and there's like a quality to it that I kind of enjoyed, being that it's like sort of old school manga where it's like, that's sort of like the trope where there's always like one girl and like a million guys are in love with her. And I was like, all right, like at least no one is like constantly harassing this girl at every corner. But then they would just like pull out guns and start shooting each other. And I was like, hello, like what is going on? And I guess just as it kept going, I was like, what is the plot of this story? Like, I just kind of feel like she just is stuck there and doesn't really seem to mind that she's stuck there. And as all these guys keep confessing, like, I love you and I need to be with you, she's just like, anyway, I'll be over here. And I'm like, so is this a romance? Is this like a mystery? And like, there's something that happens near, I guess, sort of like the middle to end with these shadowy figures. So I thought maybe that was like the big mystery plot. But it's really covered as I kept going. So I got a bit lost in what the whole point of it was, I guess.
Yeah, it was very, like, it was weird, like, in a sort. Like, I found it more funnier. I don't know why. It was like, she's just going one place to another. She wants to go back home, but at the same time, she's like, nah, I'm enjoying here itself. Like, that way. And like, she just is enjoying her time, people like fawning over her and everything. And I'm like, okay, what do you want exactly? Just because it's confusing us readers.
Because that's the other interesting thing is that they said that she's okay, well, I guess we should explain. She just falls down this rabbit hole because she's like brought there by this white rabbit guy, and she's brought into the world of her desire. And so apparently her desire is for every single man in the entire place to fall in love with her. And then at a certain point she's like, wow, am I really that vain? But then they just don't address it ever again. So it's sort of like, yeah, I kind of feel like you should maybe do some self-examination if that's like the only desire you have in the world is to just be wanted by every random animal man that there is. But I mean, she's just very like, okay. And it seems that she's still caught up on this ex-boyfriend that she had who looks a lot like the moth blood, which is an interesting take, I guess. But like,
I actually got confused at that part. I couldn't understand whether she was like mentioning Peter, that white rabbit, as her ex-boyfriend, or like
no. It was Blood.
The guy with the black hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. No. I gave it 2 stars. Also, it was
very
so random.
Peter was very pushy.
He was very aggressive, but I mean, it's her dream, so she's into that. That's
I guess.
She wants,
girl, get some help. But I guess if you're into it, fine.
Yeah, I mean, which is fine if that's what she wants. But there was some scene. Yeah, I remember there was like random gunfights, and she's just like.
Okay, also
right.
People would just pull up anything and they would just turn into a gun and they would just start shooting each other. And I was like, good lord, what's going on? And I will say there's something that happens in the second book where she talks with a character about guns. And he's like, tell me about your world. Like, what's the normal world like? And she's like, it's normal. And they're like, okay, but like, what's it like? And she's like, okay, number one, we don't have guns. We don't just have a billion guns. We don't pull guns out and start shooting each other. And he's like, why? Here, try my gun. And she's like, no, I'm not interested in that thing. And he's like, no, but it's easy. If you just shoot people, they just die and it's okay. And she's like, no, it's not.
It's so weird. Yeah, I was like, okay, it's so weird. Like, they were like, it's okay to die. Like,
So something happens in the second book that kind of explains that in a way, but it ended up in such a cringy moment for me. I don't know. Does anybody care if I like?
I'm not gonna continue it, so feel free to spoil.
You know, there's like the guy who owns the clock tower, and like that's where she's staying. Yeah. Like Julian or something.
Yes,
maybe?
yes.
Julian. I don't remember anyone's names because I really didn't care. Sorry.
Okay, I was reading this like literally like an hour ago, so it's still fresh. But so Julian is like the owner of the clock tower or whatever, and she had seen those shadows that like surrounded this dead body, and they like grabbed a clock and they disappeared. Mm-hmm. It's like, Julian, what's going on? And he's like, I don't know. At some point in the second book, he does know, because he's the one who is like, all these like those shadowy people are actually dead people, and when someone dies, their heart gets left behind, but their hearts are clocks in this world. And that's why for her as a foreigner to have like a real heart means that if she dies, it would be like very permanent. But in this world, if you die but your clock gets collected, then Julian will fix the clock so that your life comes back, but you don't come back as yourself, you come back and you're reborn as somebody else. So that's why they treat death as like, it's whatever. So they just kill people and then their clocks fall to the ground and then they can get collected. But there was a character who like someone's clock fell and he like shot the clock so that it couldn't be fixed, and they were like, that's a mortal sin because then he can never come back and it's terrible. So they locked him up in jail, but then he got rescued by Blood, the mafia boss, who he's now very loyal to, and he's like, I'm loyal to him because when I die, he's gonna definitely kill my clock so that I can't come back. And that's just what some people want in this world. So it's like, all right, I guess. The cringy moment came when this all gets explained to Alice by this other character, Boris, and he's saying like, oh, what's the big deal? Because if you die, then your clock comes out and then it just gets fixed and then whatever. And she's like, yeah, but if you died, then you wouldn't come back. It would just be like your soul, but as somebody else. And he's like, wow, no one's ever cared about me as a person before. I really like you, Alice. And she's like, because lives are important. And it's like, this is such an all lives matter moment. How dare you? Like, what are you doing right now?
I kind of suspected that this would happen, that Julian would know something about it. I don't know why. I like the way he was
very mysterious.
Yeah, he was very mysterious when Alice is like, "Do you know?" And he says, "No, no." And then like he kind of changes the topic. So I kind of had this feeling that he would be somehow related to it, but I didn't care. So I was like, "Nah, leave it." So
I just have I don't know, like Alice in Wonderland is like a cool thing over there, but it's not something I can get interested in fully and immerse myself in because it doesn't make sense. And for me, I usually follow stories that have like a lot of logic built into it, whether it's logic I understand because it's like contemporary logic, or if it's like magical logic, but it all pans out and makes sense. When there's stuff where it's just like, it just happens that way, because that's like the least favorite thing of mine in a book, when it's just because, and like we can't explain it, it's just the way it is, and everything is like that, then it just feels totally like it's so wild. I just cannot get behind it and then follow the story because I'm still caught up on like, but why? But how? Why are you writing it like this? And then as the story keeps going, you're like, it'll be explained, right? And it doesn't get explained.
So who did you like apart from everyone being cringy? Who did you like?
I like Ace. I will say, I have a soft spot for like a himbo where he was just like, I'm getting lost again. And I was like, oh, all right. Like,
who did you say? Who did you say?
Ace. He's like the knight for Julian.
Yeah. He was cute, actually.
He was cute.
So like, I don't know if this is a taste thing or something that I'm learning about myself this month, because this was like the month for me of like reading some retellings of things, and I think retellings are just not my jam in general. Like, and also this read very like early 2000s, and early 2000s there was this whole slew of like Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan retellings, and it just like oozed that era of like 2005. It was okay. Like, I read a handful of like novella mangas that were Alice in Wonderland retellings, but they're like so short. It's meant to be like just a little whimsical mini story, a one shot, not like an entire series. Because I can't see like enjoying this. So it's like, okay, here's a taste of something whimsical, a palate cleanser, but not like an entire in-depth complex world. It's just like, I can't vibe with this for very long.
Yeah, I feel like it makes sense if it's like dream logic, because it's sort of like, oh, it was all a dream, and the heroine wakes up at the end like, oh man, but I'm back with all my friends. Like, you know, it's sort of very like Wizard of Oz like, where she just wakes up at the end and it's like, oh, I went on an adventure, but now I'm back. And that's like, it's totally fine. But then when they try to like really make plots happen in a story where it's sort of like everything is just because like I don't know how to get attached to people because they're just shooting each other. And there was like, I don't remember if this was volume 1 or volume 2, but there's like the two guys that are rabbits, Elliot and Peter.
They showed up in volume 1. Yeah.
Okay. Then there's a scene where Elliot's like, oh, Alice, do you think that I'm just like Peter? And she's like, yeah, because you both have rabbit ears. And he's like, no, I'm totally different because I'm not a rabbit because I don't like carrots. I only like carrot cake and carrot smoothies and carrot shakes, but I don't like carrots themselves. I only like carrot dishes. And she's like, oh, okay. And then somehow between like Peter and Elliot, they have like a gunfight over like if he likes carrots or not. And she's like, this is ridiculous. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Why did you write this? Like, you know, it's just
so weird. Okay, what was the most interesting part of this manga?
The guy who just kept getting lost.
He was great. I don't know. He feels like the most grounded person, even though everyone is like, every single person is just completely ridiculous, but I feel like he is the most relatable type person, maybe, perhaps. I can appreciate a good himbo. Maybe that's all it is. But I also will say, there was like a weird moment there where I was like, what's going on? Because there's a character who's like the amusement park owner or something like that. Do you know who I'm talking about? He plays the violin and it sounds terrible.
No. Either I forgot or that wasn't in volume 1.
Is he the Mad Hatter guy? The guy with the hat?
It was definitely in the first volume because I rated it on Goodreads, and I said, like, because, oh my god, what's his name? It's like Mary something, like whatever his last name is.
Oh, the one who hates his name or something? That guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so, like, I didn't fully understand if this was, like, just, like, stupid 2005 manga where everything is a joke and it's sort of, like, I don't know, disrespectful, but it just sort of seemed weird that, like, another character showed up and was like, oh, Mary, is this what you think? Mary? And I was like, this could be read, like, in a way that he's kind of, like, dead naming a trans person, so I feel like that's a little uncomfortable. Yeah. I don't know if it was, like, the intention at all, but, like, the guy who owns the thing, I thought his name was Boris, but it's not. That was a different character, but he goes by his last name, and he's, like, the amusement park guy, and he shows up later, and he's like, oh, sorry, things got crazy because we had a gunfight because my violin turned into a gun and I shot people, but you can come to the amusement park anytime. Okay.
And people will definitely show up after knowing that he had a gunfight.
I don't know. I feel like I don't have anything like more to say other than like what, but
I kind of put it out of my mind. I literally, after rating this on Goodreads, I completely forgot about it. It was so forgettable. I don't remember anything. Like,
yeah. I mean, I definitely think it's the kind of thing that if I had read it in 2005, I probably would appreciate it more because I mean, let's be honest. When you're like a teenager, yeah, part of the appeal is like a bunch of hot guys are into you. So like I get where that like dream desire world comes from for that perspective. I just feel like right now I'm so removed from that time in my life that I'm like, oh wait, I know what feminism is now, so like I can't be that girl anymore. So like it's not quite for me.
I don't mind that trope so much, but I feel like in order for me to enjoy that trope, show me what's so great about the main character. Like if everyone's after her, is she a good person? Like why is everyone attracted to her? Not just because she's the only female in the entire like world. Like does she do something? Does she help people? Like what is so great about the main character? And so because
she had a line where she was like, nobody could ever fall in love with me. And it's like,
oh, I'm not like other girls. Whoa. So yeah, because that wasn't there, it was just not.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any other thing to final thoughts? Anything else?
About this one, I was a little confused by the cover because I feel like, I don't know if you guys saw the main cover design, but it's like sideways instead of regular. And I was like, how? I mean, I was reading
two different covers. There was two different covers. I was so weirded out, like which one's the original one? Because I was like, I didn't know which one was the real one because they only show people picking her up, like, but it's actually about like so many guys, right? So I was like, what's going on? But
I don't know, maybe it was like the back cover or something because sometimes they put illustrations on the back, but I've definitely seen the first like the one of Peter picking her up over his shoulder. I've seen that cover around in general before, so that one fine. But then booktube was like everyone at a tea party sideways on the cover, and I was like, oh, interesting choice. Like I guess it's not like wrong or anything. It's just very unusual.
Yeah.
So
it was interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting, but I don't know. Overall, it's not really my favorite series or anything.
So, do you guys want to start with Food Wars?
Yes, because I know Steph has so many hot takes about this.
Goodness, here we go.
Well, okay, first, let's just talk about what is Food Wars. So we know it's about this guy named Soma, and he starts off working at his dad's local food shop, and they're incredible chefs, and they always have these face-offs on who can make the best food. And after his whole situation at home kind of turns into like, hey, I'm traveling the world, shutting down the shop. Hey, son, why don't you go to culinary school? And Soma's like, I don't want to. That's going to be dumb. They're going to teach me how to make like cereal. I know how to do everything already. What are they going to teach me? But he ends at school and realizes it's so much bigger and there's so many more talented people there than it sort of follows everything from there. So we only read 3 volumes of we read 3 volumes of this. I read this a long time ago. So I'm interested to see like what everybody thought of it, because this is a very, very popular like anime and manga series, but I know that Steph, one of your biggest problems with the fan service, which is very gratuitous in this series.
Yep. You guys go ahead before I start.
So my friend joined the live show and she says, I've seen Food Wars, and honestly looking at the food is very appetizing. It actually was. Yes. I read the first volume. I read it like empty stomach. I had to go eat and I was so hungry. I was like, oh my god, I want that food so bad. Like
yes.
It was very like mouth-watering, even though it was just manga, like, you know, it wasn't like colored or anything. And I definitely know anime would have made it more.
Oh, it looks so good in the anime.
Yeah. Like I have to say that is like my favorite thing about this manga was the quality of the drawing and the quality of the food. Sorry, my cat is messing with my camera. The quality of the drawing was so good. I was so impressed. Like there was this one panel where someone cooked rice, and just like from an artist perspective, the way that they made that rice look so three-dimensional and moist, I was like, this is impressive.
And it's not just like drawing every single like little thing, but it's like actually knowing what things look like and then shaping it in an anime style, and it still looks like really incredible.
It was very satisfying.
All of the art style for a lot of the manga that we've read generally is like very good, but I feel like sometimes you just see something that's very like exceptional in terms of the art. I feel like this is like one of those series where like every panel is like really gorgeous. Like if it's the character design, the food design, the way that like the background looks or anything, I feel like it's really, really well done.
I feel the food they showed was very detailed. Like, you know, it was like exactly how it should be. And like, you know, you could visualize it easily, even though it's like it's drawn, but like, you know, you could visualize how it looks in real life. So I really liked that part, that it actually made me hungry, which I kind of was not expecting. And one thing that I really liked was that it kind of like told you how to make the dishes, like after each, like, you know, the story ended, which was really nice. Like, oh my god, like we get recipe with the story. I mean, we can definitely rant about the story, but I just want to like highlight the good parts, and then let's go to, you know. Like,
yeah, I mean, like what I found was with the description of what the dish was, because so often it was like kind of a surprise, because very often, and like this is a trope that I love a lot, is that the main character gets thrown into a situation where it's like, how are they going to get out of this one? But because they're just like have the skills or the intelligence or something as that underdog, even though they have like everything set up against them, they figure something out and they come out either on top or like they've just surprised everybody. So in so many cases, we would see that Soma has like almost nothing with him. Like I think maybe it's the second volume, the one with like the meat competition, and they're just like, beef, and it's going to be like fantastic. And he comes with like corner store grocery style like food. He's like, oh, it was on sale, and everyone's like, are you kidding me? How is this guy going to win against like this supreme amazing here? But it was the fact that like he brought all these things together, and then at the end it was sort of like, how is he going to do it? But then as the chefs or as the judges describe the dish, and they're like, oh, it's very buttery and it has this flavor, and oh wow, what is that? And they're like, oh, it comes out from this. It's just like, it's such a surprising way to make food, and it's in such a fantastic way that you're like, I never thought about food this way before, but now it sounds so appetizing. I can almost taste it in my mouth just from the description and the pictures that go with it. So it just seems like, oh, I would love to eat the food, obviously. I don't know if I would have that kind of reaction, but I think I would really like to eat the food because it sounds so great.
That's something that I appreciate in certain animes or mangas, when you can tell there was a team of like people who really researched or are super enthusiasts about the subject. Like there was clearly either I don't know if it was one creator, I don't know if they had a team with them, but someone really knows about culinary cuisine and like what works, what doesn't work, and that's just like another level of appreciation.
I would say it's chef's kiss, if you will.
Yeah. It just shows like how much the mangaka knows like about the subject he or she's he or she's writing, like it's really a plausible, like how detailed it was, like description wise, and you could not imagine like using this could make it this way. Like obviously I've not tried it, but like at those ideas and everything, it was like really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think what works for me is it's like a balance between knowledge about the subject, but it's not so in depth that you kind of get bored or lost with any of it. It's just enough that you're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about this tool, or I didn't know about this dish or whatever. But then it still has that wow factor that's like, oh, that's incredible. And it's probably like very unrealistic for real life, but it's still in the sense of like this competition going on that it's like anime levels of believable. You know what I mean? Like got shot and his arm grew back. Like, it's still like, okay, this is really amazing for this person to create. And then here's also kind of like all of the logic behind why this works and why it's so cool. And I have seen people like create the dishes in real life. I'm sure they have to kind of like tinker with the recipe here and there, because I have made the mistake of trying to make food directly from manga recipes and it doesn't work out so well. But it's pretty cool that that's like really a dish that you can make,
That would be a great video content for your channel. Like I would love to see it.
Okay, so here's story time. I read Kitchen Princess, which I love a lot, and that's partially probably why I really like Food Wars. Kitchen Princess is a story that's very similar, where there's a girl who goes to a school for talent stuff, and she wants to become a chef, and she has to kind of face a lot of trials where people are like, you have to make this thing, or you have to leave the school. Another favorite trope of mine. It's just like a random competition you get thrown into, and the stakes are so high, and it's like, you have to make this food in 30 minutes to serve 50 people, and you only have eggs. Go. Like something like that. And each time she sort of like finds some way to get out of the situation, serve the food, and everyone's like, it's delicious, it's amazing, it's whatever. So at the end of certain chapters, there would be recipes about the things that she made in the book. So I was like, perfect, I'm going to make that. Let's do it. So my friend and I, who were very into that manga, would make the dishes together. And I don't know if it was just a translation error, but a lot of the ingredients and the amounts that went with them were completely off, where it would be like, use 6 sticks of butter, 1 egg, a little bit of milk, a cookie. And it was like, it's not a cookie. It's not. No. It came out of the oven and it was liquid. It was not good whatsoever. I mean, it was a great experience and time, and it was really fun, but I would be a little cautious with the sort of recipes that come straight out of a manga. I would definitely triple check those against some other recipes on Food Network or something.
It's just butter at that point.
It was just butter. It was really so much butter.
I've seen these videos where they like bring out like the exact replica of foods from anime, and like so delicious. Like they don't tell you the recipe, it's just like some challenge where you eat it or like leave it or something, I don't know, but like they had this kind of thing, and it looked so much similar to it. And literally anime dishes are like, anime or even mangas where the drawings are really good, they're like so appetizing. I like really want to try it out, but as like, thank you Rachel for warning that these recipes don't work out. So
yeah, I mean, I would definitely say you can't just take it at face value, but it's good to double check it against something else. Although I would say it's probably hard to find a similar recipe because, for instance, we have that one near the beginning where he had to make like the rice dish, and he made those like little gelatin little cubes, and then it has like that flavor that bursts from it. Like, I don't know where you would find a recipe like that online other than here.
I think I know where, because I was thinking about that also, but that's a very similar recipe to like what's used to make soup dumplings, if you've ever had soup dumplings, because they have to, the way that they get the soup inside the dumpling is that they make the gelatin, put it inside the dumpling, and then they boil it like that, and then while it's in there, it melts, and that's how you get the soup. Yeah, so maybe if finding something similar to that is the closest I can think of, but
it probably won't be like an exact,
no,
one to one, but it's still useful to like double check against other recipes than just straight out the manga, I would definitely say.
For sure.
So but we address the elephant in the room.
Yes, that's what I was going to
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so First, I want to premise what I'm about to say by I enjoy a good ecchi, but my limit has to do with age. And I actually did some looking up because there was a couple scenes where it was like, at first it was really funny in the beginning with the whole like, oh, we're gonna like have an orgasm every time we eat some amazing food. Like, okay, the first few times it was hilarious. By the 7th time, I was like, I'm so bored. Like everyone's just having an orgasm every 2 minutes. Okay, I get it. Like the food's really good. But on top of that, there were multiple scenes where it was like, I don't even remember, some girl who was like following around Soma, I think, and there were a couple other scenes and the girls were like in their underwear having an orgasm. And she's like, yeah, I'm a first year in middle school. And then I looked it up and I'm like, oh, she's like 11, 12. That's a little uncomfortable for me. Like that's too young to be looking at this and going, oh, that's funny. Like that's where I draw my line.
Agree with that. Yeah.
Like the older people, it was hilarious. Like the one scene with the guys and they were just like, ah, I was cracking up. That was funny. But like by the 3rd volume, I was like, okay, can we have another punchline?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that like I always recommend this anime if you can stomach fan service, number 1, and number 2 if you have headphones, because this is definitely one of those ones where like, oh my god, it's like every other scene is just like that all the time. And like I don't know about you guys, but like I am like very anti fan service generally. I am not a fan of it. I don't really feel like it ever adds anything to a story for me. And like, if it does, it's like very minimal and probably could have been done it another way. So when I read these sort of things or I watch these sort of things, I just sort of like zone out whenever it's happening. Cause I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, I just like skim it as I'm going through it. So admittedly, like the first time I read or watched this, I was like, what? Like, aren't they like 15? This is kind of like interesting. And then I remember when I had just like reread this a little while ago, and it was like, I think the first volume with that girl that was following him around, and she was like, oh yeah, I'm a first year in middle school. And that was like the tentacle thing that he's like, eat this disgusting peanut butter tentacle. And she's like, oh, I bet it'll be delicious. And I was like, girl, use your brain. Don't do it. And she ate it. And then there was a gross scene. I was like, she's like 11 or 12 or something. Like, oh no.
Ooh. And it was like full underwear shot too, and I was like, oh no, she's too little for this. I'm not doing this. Like
I 100% agree though, because I feel like it is sort of like the same punchline over and over again. So as it kept going, I was like more so looking forward to the competitions and like what different situation would you be in. And I think even that could get old and sort of be like the same thing, because it's just sort of like, oh no, I'm gonna kick you out of the school if you can't solve this like puzzle. Like, this is not Saw where you have to like, you know, get out of every single one. But at a certain point, it almost just sort of feels like, how am I going to get out of this one? But everybody knows that I will. So there's sort of like the stakes don't seem as high as you keep going. I think what is great is that like there is a point where the person that they're challenging wins, and like they win and they lose. So it's sort of like, oh my God, you don't just win every single time. There are people that are better than you, and you can't just win because you believe. You have to win because you actually have the talent and you know what you're doing. So I felt like that was refreshing for once. Although I really, at this moment, I still really don't like that character, although I hear he gets better. I'm talking about like the pink-haired guy with the glasses. You know who I'm talking about yet?
I read it online in black and white, so I don't even know what
he's like one of the elite group.
The top seven?
One of the top.
Yeah. The one who was naked all the time.
Yeah, no, not him. There's a different guy. He has glasses.
The one with glasses.
I don't remember. There were so many. I don't know which one had taken it,
but I definitely was kind of not exactly irritated, but like very much over the fact where he kept winning like most of the times, and I was like, I want a bit more tougher competition to like have me more into it, because that part was like, okay, I know he's gonna win, like, you know, he's the main character, I already know, so it was so predictable. I wanted a bit more challenge part in the manga, which I couldn't see, which was a very, I don't know, disappointment. But yeah,
that was gonna be my second complaint. That like it was just boring that he kept winning every time. Or like he would have to defend someone, like this person's gonna get kicked out, I'll save you with my corner store food, and everyone's like, wow. It's like, okay, we've done this for 3 volumes, like there's no stakes. You know what anime did it really well that I watched recently? Haikyuu did it so well. Like they actually lost, and you're just like, can they ever win?
You won't believe it's my favorite anime just because they made them lose. They made them lose. And after that, their winning was like, oh my god, they did so much to it. I love that anime so much. Like,
the character growth. But like in Food Wars, I felt like there was no character growth. At least from what I read so far.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I read this in terms of like an entertainment thing, but I've honestly not read much. Like that's the problem. Is like I'm like, oh, I read a lot of manga. I just don't finish any of it. So for what I can recommend, it's like I've read 3 volumes of it, and I recommend this amount of what I've read. But as the series continues, I'm sure it's kind of like the same thing over and over again, because unless they have like the self-awareness to be like, we need to change up the story or it's going to get boring, it's sort of like impossible for him to lose and then stay in the school, because every high stakes thing is like win or I'm kicking you out. So if he gets kicked out, then the story's over, or he has to go not be in the school. So I feel like the only way they've set up the story to continue is for this to be the same exact thing over and over again. And I'm sure that after a while you're sort of like, okay, we orgasm, we eat food, he wins, and then it's over. Like, where is the spice? Like, what is going to change?
Yeah.
It's exciting. And adding in other characters can be interesting, but I feel like it does still sort of all revolve around him winning and being challenged and winning. And then at a certain point, it's like, why do you even challenge this guy? Because you know he's just going to win. So, like, where is the story?
Why are we doing this?
So, yeah, I mean, I think this is like kind of like turning on an episode of Iron Chef and being like, oh, what's going to happen and who's going to win? But sort of already knowing, like, if you challenge Morimoto, you know Morimoto's going to win. Like, why are you even challenging him? Like, stop. But it's just sort of like the same feel for me, where I think like it's fun to pick up and read like, oh, what challenge is it? But I don't think it's something you can stick with like beginning to end with no breaks in between and actually expect like a full-fledged like character development thing as far as I've seen so far. With the anime that I've watched a little bit past where we are right now. Honestly, maybe the thing I'm talking about was in the anime, so now I'm getting a little confused on like where the volume 3 ended. The whole like thing with the pink-haired glasses guy.
Volume 3 ended with he's about to defend the girl Megumi.
Yeah, with Shogeki, that thing, right? The competition.
Yeah.
Talking about the person who like is one of the alumni, the guy who are you talking about him?
He's alum. Yeah,
the specs, I guess. Yeah. That's the guy with whom he challenges in the end of the volume 3, right?
Okay, so what I'm talking about actually happened in the anime in like volume 4, I guess, section of it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting to add in like the other characters and whatnot, and it's kind of nice to like learn about somebody other than Soma, because we sort of know what his whole deal is. But yeah, again, I just don't really feel like, I mean, I guess for me, when I rate this, I don't rate it as like a complete series because I don't know where it's going yet. But as entertainment value for each volume, I ended up giving something between like 4 and 3 stars for all of them, with, again, kind of like skimming the weirdness, which probably is like worth examining, because it's just sort of like, we don't need this in every single volume, but there it is. Every single time, every 5 chapters, there's going to be a really weird one.
Speaking of weirdness, okay, I have a qualm with, I think it's volume 2, or it might be in volume 3, but with the older lady who is in their dorm, there was a scene where she was going to taste this food, and I was like, okay, grandma's about to have an orgasm. Fantastic, right? And instead of like showing her, they show her, she's remembering when she was a young girl and how she was in a bathhouse, and it was total fan service. And I was like, but old people need love too. Like, why are we doing this? That made me so upset. I'm like,
wait,
I would have
was this
loved
the
to
one
see
where
grandma.
there was like a fish man?
Was a fish man? No, it was when he was moving into his dorm and he had to cook to like get entry to the dorm.
But I mean, like, was the like fantasy about like a fish man?
I don't remember. It was her in a bath towel at a bathhouse and talking to some guy, and she's like touching his hand, and she's like, "Let's get it on," and then she's like, "Oh," but but it wasn't her now. It was her like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just like, man,
So,
we're gonna have fun.
Someone said, I have only seen the anime and Soma does lose against someone. Well, I mean.
Yeah, because this is sort of what I was talking about, I think, unless this also continues to happen. But when the pink-haired guy with the specs challenges Megumi, it's under the pretense of, like, if you lose, then you have to drop out of school, of course.
Yeah.
And Soma's like, well, I'll be your, like, right-hand sous chef. But she has to come up with the recipe. She has to do everything, and he can only help her. So in that situation, it's sort of like, is she intelligent enough to come up with everything that she needs to do for all of this stuff? So that duo are up against that guy, the pink hair glasses guy. And there's like, it's interesting what they do with it, although I don't feel like it's like so interesting that it's like, wow, we totally changed the way the series works. But it does sort of involve like, everybody tasting the food and being like, oh, wait, you lose. But then for other reasons, they're like, but we still think she should have a chance at the school. So it's like, so why do you have the competition? Like, okay.
So someone asked, who's your favorite character in this manga?
I guess Soma. I really liked his character design. I like his sideburns. I like his haircut.
He kind of looked cute. Yeah, I agree. Like,
I like Soma because he was so like anti-establishment. The way everyone else is like, I'm an elitist, and like, how dare you sit near me, you common filth? And he's like, oh, is this seat? Oh, someone else was sitting here. Okay, yeah, I'll go sit over there. Like, he doesn't take it at all. It's like, wow, nobody likes me. Like, oh my god. He's just like, oh yeah, that's the way things are. Oh, and I'm gonna beat every single one of you, no problem. Like, he's just so like straight and to the point, and like, things go over his head, but not in a super annoying way, I think. Like, the thing that's annoying about him is the fact that he just wins everything. But I sort of like that quality about him because he's confident. Like, he's that, typical anime protagonist in that way. But he has that, like, stupid, like, my friends are depending on me, so I have to win, but how can I do it unless I believe? Like, he has that removed from his character, thank God. Like, I really
he just does it because he enjoys it, which I kind of like, because usually like the mangaka puts this focus where everyone's depending on the main protagonist, and they have to like be like, oh my god, I have so much like burden on me, I have to take care of everyone, whereas he's like, I'm gonna do it for my just because I it, and he has that confidence that okay, like I'm just gonna win, even though that might sound like overconfidence at sometimes, but like it kind of makes you feel good, okay, that
I think he needs that, because if you didn't actually believe in yourself, you would totally fail at this school. You have to believe that you're the best, or else you won't be the best at all. And I think also with the trial, I think in the second book with the meat competition or something, I also like the way that like he kind of twists the way the rules are, because they're like, okay, if I win then I get this, if I win then I get that. So he was like, if I lose then I have to leave school, but if I win you have to join the club. And like, that's what it is, instead of being like, then you have to leave the school. Like, he still wants that club to succeed, and he still like spends all this time trying to help these other people that honestly have like nothing to do with him. And then there's that girl who ends up having to join the club because she lost, and then she's like, oh my god, he's gonna be there, and he's like, oh yeah, I actually don't even want to be in this club. And she's like, what? So now I have to be in this club with like this random other guy? And he's like, oh, but it's so great because now we're gonna have like all the funding that we need, and everything will be like amazing, and we won't have our wing destroyed for the sake of like another random cooking arena or something. And it's just sort of like nice, the things that he does, but he's still like the same character. Like, he's not just randomly virtuous for the sake of like nothing. Exactly. Like, I just think it's very in line with the sort of character that he has, that he's confident, but he still cares about other people. And he cares about them with confidence that he's going to help them like one way or another. And he's willing to stake his reputation on it. Like, he's willing to step in and do whatever has to be done. And I think it's really admirable for a main character that we're following.
I agree. That's very refreshing.
Yeah.
So which scene did you like the most? Like, I know there might be many, but like, which was like, oh my god, I liked it.
Scene?
Yeah, like part of the manga. Of all three. Or is it a hard one?
I don't know. I feel like I always just like seeing, like the sort of situation where they're like, oh, this thing is messed up because someone messed with your thing. Like in the very beginning, there's the whole situation where like those people want to buy out the restaurant, so they like trash everything inside. And they're like, "Make me a meat dish." I bet you can't because we destroyed all the meat. Like, what are you gonna do? And he like still finds a way to do it. So like, I always just love it when like the antagonists like totally think they like totally messed with you, and then they're just like, "Don't worry, we're gonna have like it's gonna be fine," and they somehow find a way to like get over it. So like, I think the second or third volume is when like they put salt in their food or something, or like they don't cover it and they mess with it, and it's like, oh my god, we only have 30 minutes left, how are we gonna finish? We have to start all over, it's gonna take 3 hours, and like we're totally gonna fail out, what are we gonna do? And he's like, don't worry, it's gonna be fine. And he gets into like beast mode and he just starts like doing all this stuff, and he's like, all right, it's ready. And everyone's like, how is it ready? And they're always just like, because I use this thing to do this, to do this, to do this. And it's like, your Death Note mind games right now, like, I don't know.
He definitely had the vibe of a like protagonist of like, you know, like those, because when Megumi is like, you know, I don't know stuff, I couldn't do it without Soma, and like he's like, no, like, you know, you helped me out so much, which I kind of like about the protagonist, like they don't like, you know, leave behind others, which like is kind of repetitive, but at the same time it's like, you know, nice to see that. I don't know whether it's with you guys also, but I really like when like manga protagonists or anime protagonists, they do that, like, you know, they don't want to leave people behind, but they are successful in their own way, which is like nice, like, you know, it's like amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has sort of like an interesting relationship with everybody else there in the dorms and whatnot, because generally it seems like all those people sort of know each other already, or like they're all still kind of like newbies, but everyone sort of just very quickly becomes a friend group, but in a way that feels sort of organic, because they're sort of like bonding over like card games or like hanging out, making each other food and stuff like that. And I think that that's really fun to have that sort of like school environment, like boarding school situation. I always love that as well. And I think that that's like a really fun way to do it, but it's also like an organic friendship, because it's not like I'm a loner and I'm going to make it to the top and like I pretend to be friends with you guys, but for real, I will throw you under the bus. Like he genuinely cares about his friends and they seem to all care about each other. And I think that's really nice, especially when they're going off to they have to go off to like this boot camp for culinary stuff, and it's sort of like who's going to here, and as that continues on, it's sort of like really looking out for each other and being like, well, I made it through, did you make it through? Okay, I want to see, like, did you make it to this thing? And like they all genuinely actually want to see each other succeed, knowing that obviously at the end of the day not everyone is going to make it all the way to the top, but we still want everyone to do well. And it's like, oh yeah, that's like what actual friendship is, and it's just really nice to see that.
Yeah, and what did you guys think about Soma and the other girl? What's her name? Nancy.
The main girl.
The main girl. The elite, the granddaughter.
Narina.
Narina. Yeah.
I don't like that trope. Like that trope of like there's like that one person who's like, oh, we can't go near this person because this person is like connected to so and they act all like super snobby, and then they have to go through the whole character arc and learn to be a better person. Like I don't know if I've just read too many things with that, but I'm just kind of like over that trope right now.
I think it's so funny how everyone's like, oh my god, it's her, and he's just like, oh hey, I met you over there, and like he doesn't even actually like pay attention to her titles or anything, and she's like, how dare you talk to me, do you even know who I am? And he's like, yeah, you're, you know, you and we met, remember? It was like 3 days ago and you helped me do my test. And she's like, no, I'm like an important person and whatever. And he's just like pure proof that it's like, I don't care about your status or your title or whatever. It's about your talent. So if you're talented, then I respect you. But if you just came here on your granddaddy's money, then I don't really care. And like to see that, because it's sort of like dismantling the trope. Like I definitely don't enjoy the whole like I'm better than everybody else and now I have to realize I have to care about other people. Like I think that's kind of a boring character progression or everything, but I like the fact that like he sort of just tries to treat her like other people as much as she doesn't want him to. She's, you know, is sort of forced into caring about other people and not just seeing herself as above them. And I think as the story goes on, she sort of like starts getting closer to being more grounded, which is better. I did think it was actually really funny that they were like, oh, she's always had this like amazing sense of taste since she was born, and she was literally like being breastfed, and she was like not bodied enough. And I was like, oh my god, that's actually so funny.
That was like the opening scene, I think, to volume 1, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd say I think that whole like first chapter of volume 1 might have been my favorite chapter so far, because that was like the setup, you know, and it was the first punchline, and it was the first of everything. So I was like, okay, potential.
Was it chapter 0? Like, are you guys talking about that one?
It might have been whatever the first one was.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
also, I want to mention one more thing that I didn't like.
Go ahead.
Is all of these teachers are so abusive.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Like I get that there's always one, and that one is like mixing up the pot, and it's like it's everyone against this one, and you have that one professor. Like I even had that one professor who was just like, I'm scared of this person because they're a jerk just to be a jerk because they know they can. But like every single teacher was so abusive. I was like, yo, I wouldn't even want to go to this school. Why are we here? What do they have to offer me? Like, I don't understand.
It's like it's
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying it's like definitely like more elite the school, more like I feel that's the case, like more the expectation, more harsh the teachers are. I just feel that's how the case with this might have been. I don't know.
I think it's because a lot of the teachers, number one, feed into like the intense anime trope of like, oh, you're at this elite school, so nothing can be easy for you. Like that's a big part of like why they are the way they are outside of like the story. But within the story, they're all alum of the school, so they were probably all mistreated as well. So they also understand if they become teachers, they need to also be like terrible so that they can weed out students, because that's sort of the way that every class works. Is like, don't expect every single person to come out of class with an A. If you don't have an A, you fail. Like that sort of situation where it's like, oh God, the pressure is on. But that's probably how everything works, because if you're not even like slightly great, if you're only just pretty good, you won't even make it. So why do you bother continuing with like the following class or whatever it is? So they just try really hard to like weed everybody out so quickly. And that's just sort of like bottlenecking the whole procedure down, so there's just not as many people vying for the top seat. And of course, like for the people who graduate, there is this expectation that like if you went to this school and you graduated, you are the elite of the elite. You will get a job anywhere, and you're already like well renowned as a fantastic chef, and like you're at the top of the top of the top. And everybody who fails out of it is like retiring in disgrace, and like they'll never find a job anywhere. So it's sort of like the stakes are that high. So if I wasn't a very good chef, I wouldn't even enroll here because I knew I would just retire in disgrace. Like there's no way. But for the people who really think they're that amazing, which I think is also kind of funny because like some of these people have been training since they were like 6 to be chefs. And like now they just are at like whatever, 14, 15. And like now they're entering this school. So it's sort of like, you've been doing this your entire life. You know, you've been groomed to go through this whole process to do everything now. And then like, if you're really bad, I feel like you could have figured it out by now, but they always need to have someone they make an example of. Like at the entrance exam, there was someone who was like, who's wearing like perfume or something? And it was like, you're expelled because like that perfume would totally interfere with the dish of whatever it is that you're making. And you should know that. So you're out of the class. And it was like, it's the first day. It's like, they're already gone. Disgrace.
Was it the boot camp scene where they were like calling alumni, where one of the alumni is like, you get out because your perfume smells like
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. So any final thoughts, or should we wrap up? What do you guys think?
I I think I've said my piece, but
yeah.
guys.
I mean, I think it's very useful to think of those things, because for me, I think Food Wars fulfills a lot of the tropes I look for. Things like boarding school, intense competition that makes no sense but kind of makes sense, and the situation where there's like the underdog who like everything goes wrong but they somehow come up on top. And like, you know, I love food, so an Iron Chef sort of competition for me in a manga is like everything I ever wanted. Although the stuff with like the fan service, absolutely for sure, is like not it for me. I appreciate people like, oh my god, it's so good that I'm having a foodgasm. But when it's just sort of like, this is a little uncomfortable, and then it into like an underage situation, then I'm sort of like, no, thank you. So I think it's like useful to think of that, and also as the series goes forward, like what more can they do to make it interesting? And I think you know, the series has continued for a long time, probably because it's successful, or people you know, did something a little bit differently with the story going forward. So I'm interested to see, like, as it keeps going. I do think I'm going to continue with the series, but I also understand the whole like turn-offs of it as well.
Yeah, I definitely did skip the part where it did get uncomfortable because it kept repeating. And I was like, okay, this is like too much. As Steph already mentioned, I had to like skip it over few scenes. Sometimes in the beginning, I laughed, okay. And I was like, now I'm done with it. Now just skip it and go ahead and get to the point what's happening. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that whole like, especially the scene where I think one of the female teachers, I don't remember what her name was. It might have been in the second volume or third volume, but like she passed them because she's tasting her students' food, and then she's passing them because the product of her students' work gave her an orgasm. That to me is just really cringy, and I have no intention of continuing this series. And it just doesn't feel high stakes enough for me because the underdog's always winning, and I'll probably just like Google search, you know, like, does he ever lose? And then if that comes like maybe in the next volume or something, then I'll potentially maybe continue just to see like where it goes. But as of right now, it's a no.
Okay, so shall we wrap up, or any more thoughts do we have?
I think those are the final thoughts. We probably want to mention what we're reading for next month.
Yes.
Okay, so next month's co-host isn't here, so
it's going to be on Kitty's channel.
It's
going to be the main host, and she picked out the volumes of what we're reading. So we're reading 3 volumes of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is very popular right now, and we're reading 1 volume of Miss Koizumi Loves Ramen.
I'm really excited for
loves ramen noodles. Sorry, I read that as like no die, and I was like noodles. Sorry, Miss Koizumi Loves Ramen Noodles. So sorry. So please feel free to keep up with us in the Discord.
I will be linking it down in my description. I haven't. I will, after the live gets ended, I'll mention everyone in my description. So make sure to join us there. We try to talk there, discuss what we are reading in that month, and hopefully we can continue and do more of that. So you guys can check it out definitely in the description. So so that's it for our live show. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see the next one. Bye guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.